So just to continue with my little project, 22 lessons for 22nd century. The fifth lesson would be balanced growth and development, which means that you can grow in one dimension, this is growth, and development something like metaphorically like more holistic, like you grow in X dimensions. So if you would just grow in one dimension, you would become fragile, you would die. I don't think this goes back to the second lesson of be anti-fragile or something. So like growing in one dimension means, like, for example, if you means like you wouldn't stop, imagine you wouldn't stop growing your height, you would become very fragile, you would die, your bones would become very weak, this and that. So we all kind of, almost all of us, stop growing, otherwise we would really become sick and die, growing physically, and then we develop psychologically, philosophically, spiritually, whatever, but we grow in multiple dimensions. So so this is the kind of the difference between growth and development, and you need both. So today people say like you shouldn't emphasize growth in GDP, growth is bad, we should degrowth the economy and this and that, but I think it's just the idea of degrowth is quite dangerous, because then if you stop growing, people kind of switch into this like zero-sum game mentality and become quite more violent. This is what happens in the past. People burning witches, mostly it kind of was like in the time when there was not enough food, these kind of things. So but growing in one dimension and growing in multiple dimensions, this is again the same thing, going back into the introduction, like you have many identities and you should develop them all. You shouldn't be just like amazing at work, but you should be maybe good father if you have kids, you should be good friends if you have friends, hopefully, and this kind of thing. So growth is one dimension and development is multiple dimension. Growth is something more like quantity and development is like quantity, but importantly, quantity is growth, development is like quality of course. But the important thing is like quality is growth in many dimensions. Yeah, so it's still growth, but it's many dimensions. That's the difference between development, the kind of balanced development, and just growth in one dimension. Just imagine your company become ever bigger by exploiting people, trapping their minds on some kind of social network, become bigger. What's the point? It's not much point, because at the end you won't be really celebrated, because people will be just sick of your companies, like arguing too much on social networks or being stuck onto their screens is not good. I mean, okay, you have a billion people's hooked on something, but maybe you could be like half the size but provide better service. That's the development compared to growth. So that's the fifth lesson, balance growth and development. Sixth lesson would be, I need to look in my really terrible writing, what I wrote when I read those two books, 21st lessons for the 21st century and 20 lessons from 20th century. So the sixth one would be a constant gardener. So I don't know why I came up with this name, but it's very different to kind of, two things are very different. Machine is very different from garden. Garden, it's kind of complex systems. Too much water can kill your garden, too little water can kill your garden. Too much of like inconsistencies, like 1 month you put I don't know how much water and the next month you just let it dry, it's also not so good. So it's kind of really tricky. But being constant means like you need to, those flowers need constant tendering. Society is very much similar. Taleb uses a different metaphor, a cat and a washing machine, and also the thinking, it's kind of a bit different there, or the metaphor is used for something different. But having a cat is fragile. Yeah, like cat is fragile. When it jumps from 1 meter, it's different than it jumps from 1,000 meters. It's gonna hurt her much more. Of course, washing machine is the same, but the difference is like cat becomes stronger by fighting these stressors, by being active in the environment, and it grows the muscles and these kind of things. So the metaphor here, cat and washing machine, is a bit used for something a bit differently than a garden versus machine. That's a metaphor used by Eric Liu and Nick Hanauer in their book called Gardens of Democracy. So the idea here is that our societies are not machines; they are gardens. So there is really important to keep the mind, keep on mind that you need a right measure of watering. For example, that would be like maybe a right measure of like policy towards minimum wage. So it's like not that the minimum wage is bad socialist idea, or it's, I don't know, something else like it's totally bad capitalist idea, or something like you either should have it or should not. But it's the balancing, the kind of fine tuning is very important in many aspects. It could be actually the same thing could be said about like careful legal migration. I love foreigners. I mean, I said I spent loads of time in Kenya and stuff like that, but I don't think that it's kind of wise to just don't completely open the borders. It would like the entropy or something, like it would level up, so you would have like Middle East in, I don't know, in Bratislava or something like that if you completely open the borders. Maybe not, but in the past people say like in the past the borders were open, it's true, but then the city borders were closed. So that's the difference, you know, like you had the city, you had the border at the city level and not at the state level. But the more general point is that we need to believe in ourselves. We need to be open-hearted. We need to have open hearts towards strangers, even towards refugees, and be really like persuade voters that we have moral duty to welcome many people. Many more than 14 that we have done in Slovakia, or 20 or 100. We can do 1,000 for sure. I'm sure that we can do 1,000 people. That's definitely sure. But still, the abstract point here is that you need to be constant gardener. You need to take a good care and fine tune those things. It's not like either or. It's not minimum wage is good or bad. It's not like open borders, either open or totally closed borders. No, I mean we need to open them a bit more, maybe for some countries a bit less. That's depends. And we should still believe in ourselves, and like kind of, but it's again the anti-fragile kind of idea. The second lesson, you need to kind of become stronger. So these are maybe the stressors, these are the challenges. By solving them we become stronger, but you cannot take too much of a challenge at once. If you are lifting, I don't know how many kilos, 40 kilos, you can't take 400 kilos. You know, that's the idea. You should progress slowly. Otherwise, maybe your voters get tired and they vote you out of the office or something like that. You need to be really careful. So that would be like the idea of being constant gardener. Lesson number 6. Lesson number 7. Expect earthquakes. So again, the garden versus machine is a complex system, or introducing the idea of complexity. Earthquake science is maybe the one of the few areas that think in this kind of mindset that is based on some kind of this Richter scale or a logarithmic scale. Richter scale, we say it in Slovak, but it's the idea is that again this goes back to anti-fragility, something that some small vibrations, there are like thousands, tens of thousands of earthquake, we even don't notice them, or the cup of coffee doesn't notice them, maybe it shakes a little bit, but then there the Richter scale is like 10 times 10 times 10 times, so it's like the number 2 is 10 times less strong than the number 3, so number 4 is 10 times stronger than number 3 on the Richter earthquake scale. So the idea here is that many things in the world are distributed and are of this kind of nature, so it's not really like the extremes aren't really confined, so you don't have this like normal distribution or bell curve distribution where, I don't know, people are either 40 centimeters or half a meter short or 2.5 meters tall or something, and you can't have like 1 kilometer person tall. Of course you can't have, yeah, that's the normal distribution. But then you have some things that have like a power law or like Pareto distribution kind of types, and to think about them, it's better to use this something like expect earthquakes, means like use this kind of earthquakey kind of Richter scale of measuring things. So like, I don't know, some things are catastrophes, but they are really small catastrophes, and some are like 10 times more, 100 times more or something. And don't expect the last thing to be the final one. I mean, the Fukushima disaster or something, the power of tsunami, was overcome, like it was underestimated. But then maybe the next tsunami can be like 5 times or 2 times or something stronger than that. It's like, if you haven't experienced something, it doesn't mean that it can't be. So this is also the idea of black swan, what the Taleb says and stuff like that. But the idea of earthquake is really, really powerful, like the measuring earthquake. So like there are thousands of small earthquake you can sustain, you can have stoic attitude, this and that, but then there are some black swans you're not ready to, and it can blow up. So so expect earthquakes, and really think about, like, be calm when the unthinkable happens. That's what that's what Timothy Snyder talks, like, be calm or something like that. Here Yuval Noah Harari talks about, like, don't panic, for example, in face of terrorist attacks and things like that. But I think, yeah, they're completely right. It's like people overreact, and many bad things happen when people overreact. It's very, very important to protect our democracy by being calm, don't panic, this and that. Problem here is that you need to add something here, and this is earthquake science, and this is like, yeah, don't panic with something like some level of terrorist attack, like say 3,000 people, but expect earthquakes. Expect earthquake, meaning like it can be 10 times more the next time. If like 50 million people died, I don't know, in the Second World War or something like that, 30 million, I don't know, but something between those numbers. Doesn't mean that the next war might be 10 times more, maybe 500 million. So, and that it will change everything. It will change, like, the idea that we are better angels of our nature, that there is much progress, less and less people are dying, they are less and less violent. It's kind of true. It's really true. Like, I mean, you all know Harari talks about that these kind of terrorist attacks, like what happened now, is, of course, compared to car crashes and air pollution, they kill really small number of people. But even in the past, in the Middle Ages, people wouldn't even care about these kind of things. We are like much more sensitive towards this, which is good. We are much more sensitive. We want our countries, our governments to protect us, which is good, because the world is much less violent. This is what Steven Pinker says, and the thesis is kind of, it's true. On a daily life, we are more sensitive to smaller earthquakes, meaning we are keeping them under control. We are really fighting crime, which is amazing. But doesn't matter that we are protecting against these black swans. There can be really big earthquakes. They are very rare. They happen 100 each 100 years or each 300 years, but they might be really consequential, meaning really powerful or something, and we need to be ready. So think about your life, about the society as a Richter scale, as different levels of things that can grow. It can be 10 times more. This is really good to prioritize problems and stuff like that. We'll talk about it more. But expect earthquake, and expect 10 times bigger earthquake or calamity or catastrophe than was before. So this is lesson number 7, expect earthquake. Lesson number 8 is like identity in small doses is medicine, in big doses or in identity in excess is poison. So this is really just the same metaphor than for the garden versus machine. Something in small numbers, meaning it's complex. So something in small numbers can make you stronger, which is identity politics here, for example, as an idea. It really can make you stronger. You need to this is what also Timothy Snyder, like, build your identities, your hobbies. Like, are you collecting stamps as a joke? I don't know. Are you playing these video games? Are you brewing beers with someone? Yeah, just do it. Strengthen the identity of your group, promote the interests of your group. It's really important. It's a medicine. It's really identity politics in small dosages are medicine. If they are outgrowing, becoming too extreme in a way, like overtaking all the other issues. Imagine again what I mentioned: growth versus development. If you grow in one dimension, like maybe growing in identity politics, besides some kind of point, it becomes counterproductive. This is the idea of complexity, or the idea of diminishing returns on investment, or diminishing marginal returns. Is basically, imagine you are on an island, or no, on a desert, lost in a desert, and you haven't drunk for 2 days. Then you find an oasis, and you run towards the oasis. There is water. You drink like your first cup or your first sip or something. Let's say you have a cup. Your first cup has such a amazing return on marginal return.